I'd like to go ahead and call BEDC meeting to order for Monday, July 17th, 6 p.m.
Yes.
Are there any public comments at this time? Okay. On to regular business. Agenda item 3.1, welcome of new board members. So we'd like to welcome new EDC board members, Connie Schrader, Sam Kier, Ron Spencer, and Catherine Nash.
Catherine is not with us tonight. She has a 2-week obligation at the Boy Scout Jamboree and will be joining us sometime after July 31st for a special meeting or the August regular meeting, but she had a previous engagement this month and was not able to join us tonight.
Gentlemen, welcome. Would you like to say anything or just move on?
Well, I'm just happy to be here.
Great. We'll move on to item 3.2. It's the approval of meeting minutes of the regional regular board meeting from June 19th. They're in your packet on page 4.
Move to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All's in favor? Any opposed? Minutes are approved.
Having not been there.
Yeah, I don't think we could
Is
vote.
3 enough for you to carry it and all is well?
No. Yeah. Let's try that vote again.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Well done. Next, we're going to item 3.3, and that's acceptance of EDC's financial summary for period ending June 30th, and I'll turn it over to Sean for on page 7 in your packet.
So we are 3/4 of the way through the budget year, or 75%. So this is for the period ending June 30th, which would have been the end of Q3 for us. So revenues right now are running about 74% of budget, 1.655 million. What I will tell you is after the current month sales tax collection, we're running about 2.3% below budget at the moment. We're 1.7% up for the year, but that has a 4% increase on it, so we're about 2.3% behind budget based on the current collection period. Expenses are about 1.5 million and about 63% of budget. When you look at revenues, sales tax year over year, we're tracking right above where we were at, but as I was saying, we're only about 1.7% up for the year, year over year, but that makes us 2.3% behind budget. Looking at our expenditure chart, it breaks down kind of the categories as the city expenses them out. The debt service is large because we did a defeasance earlier in the year, and it has been getting smaller month by month as we bring on some other expenses. Looking at our expenditures on a bar chart, on line graph, excuse me, you see that defeasance back there in November jumps us up. So we've been tracking about parallel to our normal expenses for the year, and about the end of the year with that defeasance, we'll actually catch up to where we traditionally have ended the year. And this is for the period ending 9/30/2017, projecting out 3.6 million in gross fund balance. That doesn't change throughout the year. That's actually comes off the audit and our budget year projections. And then finance adds in the total debt obligation chart. You'll see in the budget, I've got the details out on this and how our debt service drops off in FY 3034. But we see, we'll actually see this chart change just a little bit at the end of this year when we recognize the defeasance. So. Then I went through the financial statements today. We are on sales tax. Obviously, I pointed out that we're running a little bit behind for the year at the end of June. Interest income is strong from the financial policy changes last year. We're good in personnel, supplies, maintenance, occupancy. We get into the contractual services and we're good. Other charges is what it's called on the financial statement. Due subscriptions and publications, I think we're almost done there and what our annual costs are, and so that's almost budgeted out. I am going to be the bearer of bad news. Our 380 agreement reimbursement account is probably going to run short, and we're probably going to have to come back for a budget amendment. That's bad news in that we have to budget more money, but the good news is that those guys that we pay that 382 actually have collected more sales tax than we budgeted. So it's a double-edged sword depending upon how you look at it. So be prepared for that later in the year as we make that final budget amendment for the year. And we'll probably just, at this moment, I think we have enough in contingency and can do that with a board motion without having to do a full budget transfer. Capital outlay, debt service are all good. I've done projected fund balance for the end of the year based on our balance sheet, and it's going to be strong in comparison to where we're at. And then going through our details, nothing in our details jumped out at me as an unusual expense or anything that needed specific note. I will take any questions on the financials.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, on to item 3.4, consideration, discussion, and possible action on election of 2017-2018 BEDC officers, chair, vice chair, secretary and treasurer, and assistant secretary and assistant treasurer.
With the board appointments being complete, and this being the meeting following that, it is customary for the board to elect new officers. Currently, Cam is serving as secretary, treasurer, and acting chair. The previous chair was Steve Mills, who resigned earlier in 2017. Christy Koch was not reappointed to the board and was vice chair and acting chair in his absence, and so we're down to a single officer. I know that Ms. Nash is not here tonight, but staff highly encourages the board to go ahead and hold officer elections. It does create some hardship on the EDC not having a chair or vice chair and secretary treasurer. We do not provide any guidance on who to elect to those positions and leave that to the board. We do make a recommendation that Angela Ryan be appointed as assistant secretary and that myself be appointed as assistant treasurer, unless the secretary treasurer would like to keep the minutes and the treasurer would actually like to present the financials and go through those.
Well, I would certainly make that motion.
Yeah, so the motion from Kevin is to appoint Angela as assistant secretary and myself as assistant treasurer, with a second from Drusilla, just to clarify.
Yeah. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
You'll still have to resolve the other.
Are there any comments?
I was just wondering, Cam, would you accept chairman?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. I would accept secretary treasurer. That's okay with everybody.
That's fine. I don't know if anyone has any other comments, but
I'd like you guys to do that in 2 different votes so I can recuse myself from Cam's nomination, if that's agreeable.
yeah, we can do that. And for vice chair, the secretary, Kevin, would that be something you'd be interested in doing, or have?
I'll do that. Okay,
Yeah.
but, I mean, would you want to do vice chair? I'd be happy.
Well, I think it makes sense for Kevin to take that position because he's had a little more experience being on the board prior to this one. So I think that makes perfect sense, at least for this initial year.
Okay, so let's start with secretary, treasurer, and vice chair. Correct. As so nominated?
Well, it's two positions, right?
Correct. So, so can I get a nomination? A
Yeah,
motion?
I nominate Cam for the chair.
And I recuse myself.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So moved, so passed. Do I hear a second motion?
Yeah, I have a second motion here to nominate Kevin here as vice chair. Okay, and Sam as the secretary treasurer.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Now on to item 3.5, consideration, discussion, and possible action on board meeting schedule for 2017, 2018. And this is in your packet on page 24.
So traditionally, the EDC board has met on the third Monday of the month, except in January and February where it falls on MLK Day and President's Day, and we move back a Monday. And so in your packet is the 2017 and 2018 dates through September 17th, 2018 for the third Monday. When I got here, the board met at 6:30 p.m. We got the board to move that up to 6 p.m. so you possibly could get out of here in time for dinner instead of being in the middle of dinner time. But it really is up to the board to set the meeting date and the meeting time. Within the bylaws, it says that the board will meet here at City Hall unless it's not available, and the chair can select a suitable location. So the meeting location is not up for conversation, but the dates that we meet and the time are up for y'all's decision. If all of that made sense.
Yeah, I could make it earlier if you wish it to be earlier than 6.
Yeah, I mean, I could make it earlier as well, if it makes sense, you know, for others.
I'm usually already here, so it doesn't matter.
Is there any issue with room being available earlier? So, yeah, I could do as early as 5 or so.
We normally will block the room for all of these dates if it's the third Monday. We normally, right now, we block it from 5 o'clock on, but we very easily, we normally get here about 4:30 in the afternoon, so we would probably move the block to 4 o'clock to some reasonable hour in the evening. And we'll have to check the schedule, but we have all the third Monday evenings blocked for the foreseeable future, just because this has been the date that we have our meetings on. Charlie, is earlier okay with you? He is the one that drives the farthest.
Believe it or not, I'd rather be at home as much as the earlier the day, make my wife happy. How about that?
And Mondays are good, just not Tuesday is my request, not Tuesdays.
Changing the date could get complicated.
You said it's the third Monday on,
Third Monday, except for January and February, which is the 4th, because there's federal holidays there.
okay, that works for me.
Just a quick comment. It was probably about a year or 2 years ago where there was some open discussion about possibly doing every third, every fourth meeting during the day. If you recall, that came up, and once we set these meetings, we did move forward. Just want to bring that up. There was some public comments about possibly doing a meeting during the day just for those people that possibly couldn't get here, that had evening commitments. Again, I'm not wavering either way, just bringing that up, and if there's no action on it, it's no action.
Day meetings are no worse for me than night meetings, so I'd take it.
So we'll just leave it as is, because we don't have to make a motion on this, correct?
Yeah, if you're going to change the time from 6 to probably 5:15 is the more reasonable time. Then 5 o'clock, straight up 5 o'clock, so it gives folks that close at 5 the chance to get here. we probably need a motion that says something along the lines of, I move that the EDC adopt the schedule as presented by staff and set the meeting time at 5:15.
I'd rather it be 5 or 5:30. That's a weird, that seems awkward, but I'm only one, so whatever
I don't get
everybody
a
else
choice
wants
in
to
this.
do.
I'm just trying to facilitate.
I agree that, I agree that 5, for anybody that might be getting off work as a public person, want to come see the meeting, 5 might be too much of them rush. So either, I don't mind about the 5:15, but 5:30, either way. I just don't agree with straight at 5 o'clock.
Doesn't make a difference to me. I'm pretty open. So, I mean, if we need a motion, to accept, as it is published right now, that we have the ability to move it to 5 o'clock, then I so move that we accept the existing dates on the third Monday, and that we go ahead and move the meetings to 5 o'clock. If that works for everybody.
Except, Sean, weren't you saying you prefer no earlier than 5:15?
I think I did. 5 will be fine. Let's see how it works. If for some reason people are not able to make it, that's the board's pleasure, and we can always adjust it at a later date.
Okay.
Okay. That's fine. If we need to have it 5:30 just to make it where everybody can, that it's set there, would it be better to have it at 5:30?
Okay, I make a motion that we move the meetings to 5 o'clock, that we accept the dates that are proposed in the, this deal where it's the third Monday except for January and February, accept the dates that are on page 25, and start the meetings at 5 o'clock. And the rest of that motion would be, if it's a problem, then we'll move them later. That's my motion.
Very good. Then I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is item, I guess we have to open the public hearing, correct?
Yes.
I'm opening a public hearing to conduct a public hearing to provide information and receive input from the public regarding a proposed project being considered by the Bastrop EDC, funding of the downtown trail expansion project in an amount not to exceed $680,000.
So I want to give a little bit of background here during the public hearing so that everybody is kind of up to speed. We'll talk here during the budget workshop about a special budget meeting in which we'll do a full orientation that Catherine should be available to meet. But for the public's benefit, we practice what we call the ABC theory of economic development, which A is for primary jobs, B is for non-primary jobs, C is community development, D is development and redevelopment, E is education, workforce development, and then internally we do finance and government. So the downtown trail expansion project is a community development project in which we're enhancing the quality of life through parks and tourism attractions and other mechanisms that are legal under 505 of the Texas Government Code. And so let's see if I can do this down here. So for a little bit of background on the trail project, we've completed a route study that, there we go. We completed a route study that here at Childers and Loop 150, Old Austin Highway, jumps off of the existing trail and comes down to the Highway 71 frontage road. This little white building here where the red dot is Coffee Dog. This is the EDC office where Independence Title's there in the center, the dentist, us. It comes down to Highway 71 frontage road. It goes eastbound to just past the hotel where the new frontage road bridges that TxDOT will be constructing over the Colorado River and stops where TxDOT picks up, and then they bring a multimodal bridge across the Colorado down to Pecan Street and then back down to Water Street. So the blue section here is divided into two sections, 1A down to 71 and 1B over to the bridge. So once we pick up at the bridge here in the pink section here, that is phase 2 of the project, and it runs along Water Street and then along Main Street, tying in right there at Wells Fargo. This is the history of the EDC being in the trail business goes back quite a ways. We were a portion of the funding source, a majority of the funding source for the Chestnut Street improvements. We provided funding for Old Austin Highway and the sidewalks running up Old Austin Highway. We've invested quite a bit of money in downtown, one of those being the downtown improvement project, the Main Street Improvement Project, which is a sidewalk project downtown. And so what we are looking at here in this public hearing and going to be receiving input from the public is on this trail and the funding of this project. The public hearing notice, for those of you that are new on the board and even current existing board members, when we posted the public hearing notice in the Bastrop Advertiser, it starts a 60-day clock. We can't fund a project until the 61st day. And so this public notice for the public hearing starts that clock. And so this is required under B law. And until this hearing in that 60 days, we can't expend any funds on this. And so what the resolution following the public hearing asks is the $180,000 that there was a previous public hearing held on, along with $250,000 in the next budget year in FY18, as well as $250,000 in FY19, be allocated to this project through the EDC budget to complete the trail system. The resolution, once it's adopted, will need to go to council for readings of the council and be approved by the council. This gives us the authorization to put the money in the budget. But we're here really to take public input, but I wanted the board and the public to kind of understand the trail, and we're here to answer any questions from related to that.
Sean, once the funding in your 60 days, what is the timeline once you can actually get started of doing the parts?
So we have the authority right now under the $180,000 in the current budget year to execute the scope of work for the engineering for the complete trail loop. And so dependent upon the action tonight, we'll execute that scope of work and start the engineering, looking to put this out to bid sometime this fall.
Thank you.
So is the $180,000 that's already been approved from
Correct.
the last council,
Correct.
is that strictly for the scope of work, or does that include anything other than the scope of work?
So it was $180,000 to construct the first phase of this project. Once we got into looking at the loop, a route study made more sense, and so we did the route study. Now we're looking at doing the scope of work for the engineering, and there will be some balance left that can be used for construction of the first phase of the trail. This resolution that will be considered after this will give us full authority to fund the remaining portions of this trail and construct it in FY18 and if needed in FY19. And if there are any public comments, please come up.
And has TxDOT approved the bridge?
Yes, the plans were,
walkway?
they were at 90% whenever we did the route study, and so there's a let date sometime, I believe it's in November of this year, to let that contract. And I haven't heard any differently from Wesley Brandon, the city engineer. Those plans should be ready to go to bid, I believe, in November of this year.
Does this particular trail here, does it tie into any other trails or any other things that are either in the prior development or in the future development?
So what this trail does, from tying in here from SQ down to 71, it's going to tie across into Pecan Park, it'll tie into Walmart, it'll tie into basically everything south of 71 west of the river except for Hunter's Crossing, which we know that and are looking at future trails that can accommodate that, us and the Parks Board. And then it also will tie back and tie in all of downtown with that as well. So it connects up both east and west of the river and then north and south of Highway 71 on the west side. What we do also know is this trail here from this point here downtown goes up here to 95, and the city has a grant pending with TxDOT and Campo to build a trail to the state park system, which will get you basically to Mayfest Hill Park, where the rodeo arena is at, and we know that from there we need to get to the intersection at 150 and 71 where Tahitian, the entrance to Tahitian Village, to tie in Tahitian Village.
And Sean, you also then would have the ability to get down to the Riverwalk as well.
That is correct. The stairs at Ferry Park, this will go right by the stairs at Ferry Park, drop you onto the Ferry Park Trail, running up to Fisherman's Park and beyond.
Is the scope of work going to include the time, I'm sorry, is going to include the time frame? Because I know TxDOT is usually a lot later in the time frame, and probably the end result, if you will be the bridge being built.
So we will have our stop point. If we beat them to construction, we'll have our stop point and they'll come to us. And so we'll have to get an advanced funding agreement with TxDOT. We'll have to send our plans up, get them approved. We're going to provide advanced funding and construct it, and then the blue portion will actually be a TxDOT dedication, and it will be owned by TxDOT. The pink portion is actually City of Bastrop, and the City of Bastrop right away, and will be owned by the City of Bastrop. I think Richard has a comment.
Hi, Richard Smarzik, my wife owns Relics. We both have a couple of trikes. This is multimodal. It gives us a place to go. Nice, safe place, so I'm all for it. By all means, build it.
Thank you, Richard. Are there any other comments? Yep, so we'll go ahead and at this point close the public hearing. On to item 3.7. Consideration, discussion, and possible action on Resolution R-2017-0009 of the Bastrop EDC to fund the downtown trail expansion project in an amount not to exceed $680,000. Sean?
So what this does, one of the things that we do as EDC staff and you as EDC board in approving resolutions is we lay out the legal argument of how it's legally authorized for us to expend these funds. And so that's what the whereases basically are, is saying that we have the legal authority to expend the funds. And then it lays out that we're committing $180,000 in this current budget year, $250,000 in FY 2018, and then $250,000 in FY 2019 for this project. It solves a lot of problems for us down the road as staff. We know the funding's going to be there. We're going to start a project. We have all the funding we need to complete it. And so by FY 2019, we should be delivering a completed trail loop subject to TxDOT getting their portion done. But we'll probably be waiting on them. But that's a better problem to have than 3 years later after TxDOT has built their bridge and us thinking about a trail.
Just a quick question, back on the trail, how wide is the trail? Is it a trail for bikes and people at the same time?
So our general thought is anything that we build needs to be what's called multimodal, and so it needs to be wide enough that both somebody can be passing either on a bike or as a pedestrian. And so the trail generally is going to be somewhere between 6 and 10 feet and average about 8 feet in width. There are going to be sections that just because of right-of-way constraints get constrained to 5.5 feet, but there'll be other sections that that'll be more in that average 8-foot width range.
Are there going to be any ADA issues whatsoever on this? Is everything going to be paved and have ramps so that anybody with wheelchairs or that needs special help? It
does. It will have to meet all the ADA requirements. There's a couple of spots that we're going to have to address some drainage concerns, and all of that's been contemplated in the project. Down at the Tropicana, for example, there is a stormwater grate that we've got to deal with. How we're going to control that stormwater and make sure that we're not causing problems. And we're actually probably in our solution going to make drainage in that area better by the solution that's being proposed. And one of the questions y'all haven't asked that we get occasionally is how do we keep cars from jumping over the trail is you actually have to put a curb stop in there, or a stop. You actually have to have a separator in there. So there will be a curb between where it abuts the pavement to keep cars from jumping onto the sidewalk and hitting the bicyclist. I know Charlie appreciates that on his bike.
Just
Yes.
one other question that I have is, well, looking at the map, if you will, the land that is close or is going to be underneath the new bridge, I don't know if that's land that can be developed in the future or not, but if it is such land, is there plans or discussion to actually connect that to new businesses that may go in there or anything that may go in the future?
That is actually City of Bastrop owned parkland. And so this trail is actually going to wrap back around to where underneath the frontage road bridge, that is actually City of Bastrop parkland. And so it will actually allow them to develop that park and have access to that park through the trail.
Any other comments or discussion? Not. Do I hear a motion?
So I motion to approve the resolution 2017-009.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. On to 3.8, workshop session. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will conduct a workshop session to preview and discuss the EDC's FY 2017-2018 budget, and to discuss the possibility of holding a special meeting and budget workshop on July 31st, 2017. Turn it over to Sean.
I'm going to stand down here if everybody will indulge me, so I can actually see y'all a little bit better. Y'all should have in front of you a budget that says 7/14/2017, and then on the bottom it has a red date of 7/17 because we made one minor change this morning to it. Looking at page 1, well, we have guests in the audience. Would y'all like to see it on the screen? We can do that. That's how many files it takes to make a budget. So this is page 1. It will be renumbered page 2 because there is a cover page, but we didn't figure that out till after we printed it. So what we're looking at here is basically the overview of our revenue and expenses. We're looking at total revenue. We're looking at the green column is the FY 18 year, which is the budget we're looking at. We're looking at revenue of about $2.248 million against expenses of $2,005,000, which leaves unallocated funds next year of $242,000 at the moment. When you look down below the dark black line in the bottom half, under expenses, administration, operations, marketing, advertising, and professional services, that's really the cost of operating the EDC. The lines below that is really programs, project, grant expenses, and debt service on past projects. And so what we look at in this budget is we've got about $696,000 in operations and about $1.3 million in programs, projects, and grants, and then unallocated funds of $242,000. When you look historically back in the FY 16-17 budget and then the FY 15-16 budget, you know, we run between 25 and 30% for operating the EDC, and then the remaining portion of that is either spent on programs, grants, projects, debt service of past projects, or it was unallocated funds that went to fund balance. And so we're pretty close to maintaining a 30-70 mix of operations costs to projects, programs, and grants. And so I don't know how that compares to other EDCs, but it sounds really good and sounds really efficient. So looking at the next page, you're looking at revenues, and that's a breakdown of the revenues and how we get to the 2.248 million. Primarily it's sales tax, and page 3 is the annual work plan with a breakdown of how we get to these numbers. Really, the city is holding flat their sales tax revenues for FY18, and so in order to make ours match, we're holding ours flat as well, in which we actually concur with that as the opinion at the moment is we're not going to see a 5 or 6 or 10% increase in sales tax next year. The market's just not showing that. And so primarily it's sales tax. We have a lease agreement on a cell tower, and then interest income and interest on notes. The next page is administration, which is operational salaries for the EDC and benefits and burden associated with that. We're looking at about $344,000 or 15% of revenue. When you look at the annual work plan on page 5, the one significant change, as we've added programs, our demand for staff time to administer those programs has increased, and as we get into being a full-service EDC and having all of our programs running at their highest level, we are asking to go ahead and convert Kathy's half-time position to a full-time position. It is not nearly as expensive as you would think. Because she is part-time in the city of Bastrop, the EDC pays for half of her benefits. And so really we're looking at about 14 hours a week and half of her benefits. It's not 14 hours in full benefits. And so the effect it has on our budget is nominal, to say the least. So we would, as the executive director, I urge you to allow that to be in the budget. And we look forward to having Kathy full-time as she takes over some more of the administrative duties from Angela, and Angela moves into working on more of the programs and projects of the EDC. On page 7 is operations. From the preview budget that y'all saw a meeting ago, is this where it changed? No, it's actually the next section. So this really hasn't changed a whole lot from the preview budget. We've moved some items in here, that's why it goes up. So you're looking at $7,000 in operational supplies, postage, office equipment. Office equipment actually goes down next budget year. Maintenance of equipment at $1,000. Industrial park maintenance is a new line item here. We're actually going to take all of our industrial park maintenance in-house, and we're going to get a little bit of a credit from the city of Bastrop later on. But our mowing demands and our maintenance demands, we just, to be honest with the public and be honest with the board, we haven't done as good a job of keeping our detention ponds in the condition that they need to be. They're functioning fine, they just weren't pretty. And so we've had a contractor out there mowing and maintaining those for the month of June. They're going back out there in July to do additional work out there, and we're trying to really improve the curb appeal of the park as well as the functionality of some of those features. And having a single contractor mowing the right-of-way at the entrance as well as going through there and going, hey, this might need to be touched up. Do you want us to do it this month or do you want us to wait? I think would be more beneficial. City staff time is valuable, and I think they have better uses of their resources outside of the industrial park, and let us just go get a contractor to handle the park. Building repairs and maintenance, that's on our leased space and other buildings we own. Communications comes down. Office lease and rent, we're still negotiating our office lease and rent for next year. We're on a year-to-year contract with 2 option years, and so we're executing the option for next year. We're just trying to negotiate, hopefully keeping the same rate or a reasonable rate. It would not surprise me if that doesn't go up a little bit, just considering that we're not triple net, we're gross for taxes, and so I'm pretty confident our landlord's tax bill has gone up, and so he would like to recoup some of that from us next year. Utilities have gone down since we sold the office on Main Street. Property insurance has been pretty consistently just under $1,000. Dues, subscriptions, and publications is an interesting one. When you look at the work plan, we made a pretty significant change here that is of note. And you'll see it reflected later in the budget where we have cost savings. We have all of our professional dues, and whether it's mine or Jean's or Angela's or Kathy's or yours or just the EDCs in general, they all get lumped in here as a single charge, and so they don't get spread out across a bunch of different departments like they would at a city. But the big changes on the subscription side of this, we used to charge our subscriptions for computer software to professional services, and it's not really a professional service. We're buying a subscription to some software system, and they're listed out on page 10. The first two in SurveyMonkey and MailChimp, most people know what those are, and internet domain renewals. But Retail Lease Track is one that we buy annually. It's a database assembled of retailers and their specifications and requirements and who their contact folks are. Impact Data Source is the economic fiscal impact analysis software that we use. Executive Pulse is our CRM, contact relationship management and project management software. And then Xceligent is actually a new one that we're going to contract later this year. It's basically a CoStar LoopNet for EDCs, although they do provide it to commercial brokers as well, but it provides us an interface for commercial listings on our website. We currently have it through our domain hosting company. Unfortunately, we have to either go enter it, or the local realtors, brokers, or commercial brokers have to go enter it. Xceligent actually pulls that and collects it and gathers that data directly from the source, and we're really just pulling an RMS feed, I guess is the technical term for it, into our site with the mapping tool and all of the features that it has. And so we'll actually be turning off our real estate database and activating theirs, which will show the commercial properties that are available. We do have two publications, the Austin Business Journal and the Bastrop Advertiser. But the biggest shift is moving those subscriptions out of professional services and into dues, because that's dues, subscriptions, and publications, because that's actually where they need to be. That's the biggest change in here and why that goes up to 5.56% of revenue. The other is bonds for officers and staff. And then the $10,000 is our fee for participating in the Austin Chamber of Commerce Regional Partnership Opportunity Austin. And so that is operations. Any questions? And if there's something in the annual work plan that's missing that y'all want more detail on, please speak up or send me an email between now and next month. I think this is my third budget going through here. I think I've caught the highlights that everybody has asked, and we've tried to provide the detail that has traditionally been asked for. Marketing and advertising. We knew going into FY17 we didn't have our dollars correctly allocated because of our change in strategy. We think we've made that adjustment in 17, and so we can project that out in 18 a little bit better. We really use a personal selling 101 model, and so our marketing travel has considerably gone up. In previous budgets and previous administrations, marketing travel would have been coded to national advertising or regional advertising, and it wasn't accounted for on a trip-by-trip basis. Cam has helped us this budget year a lot in developing travel forms and getting approval of the Secretary Treasurer of our travel, and so we're able to actually account for our travel to the trip, and it's going to make us more effective down the road as we have that historical data. I don't think that the 16 and even the 17 number that we started with are reflective of the travel that was actually going to occur, because in previous budgets it was coded to places other than marketing travel. Business development, when you go and look at the work plan, that's really things here within the Bastrop market. Training travel, not only my training, but also staff training, board training, community training to some degree in what we do. But as long as it's economic development training, it's going to training travel. So my certified economic developer certification requires continuing ed. It goes to training travel. Angela's participating in Oklahoma Economic Development Institute, and so that's training travel. Jean will be probably doing the same later this year. Kathy will be going to basic economic development. We'll make available to the new board members and any existing board members that haven't had sales tax workshop. That's all training travel. We actually think that number is going to come down because Angela's getting pretty close to completing her second session, third session of OU EDI, and so that number will not be as high. Local miscellaneous advertisings and sponsorships, just the cost of some of that and what we're doing there has gone up. In national and regional advertising, we're actually going to consolidate those two accounts into just national regional advertising. If it happens in the Austin market, it's one thing. If it happens anywhere else outside of the Bastrop Austin market, it's something else. And there's even national regional events that happen in Austin that get coded there. Retail Live is a retail conference that's coming up. It's a one-day event in which retailers set up shop and are looking for shopping centers and communities to be in. That's really a national regional advertising. We've got registered for that. We'll go promote Bastrop at it. That regional advertising goes away. Digital advertising, in the current budget year, we're producing 2 videos, and then tourism is producing 1 video, the Main Street program, and New DMO are producing a 3rd one through the same contract. How we use that next year, it'll be for some type of digital production that's going on. And then special advertising and marketing is a program. We want to do more outreach to commercial brokers and commercial developers in the Austin market, bringing them to Bastrop, and that's really what that's going to be set aside for. We're hoping to run a program right before the end of the budget year for this year's cycle. We haven't quite gotten the pricing back to pull the trigger, but we'll brief the board on that as we get there. Traditionally, what I like to see is about 6% of our revenue going into marketing and advertising. The law actually limits us to 10%. And what you'll see whenever you get back to 16, that 4.45%, and even prior to that, that 4.5% to 5% is traditionally where we've landed. But this is a category that I think that extra percent and a little bit of safeguard to make sure we've got the money that we need and to be safe is well worth it. And then in the packet, you also have the 2017 marketing calendar. As the year moves on, we'll start the 2018 marketing calendar. And it's based off of not only our calendar for 17, but Opportunity Austin, Team Texas, both produce their own calendars of events and travel that they're going to be going to. And so we take our current calendar, we take their calendars, and we look and go, where might we want to be? And sometimes it works out that we're able to be there, and sometimes we get close to something and go, we just can't either get there or it's not a fit at that moment. And sometimes we find out after the fact we should have been somewhere and we add it to the calendar, and that's why you'll see a gray X sometimes in the left-hand column. It's we couldn't get there, the timing was wrong, we didn't find out till afterwards, it wasn't something we traditionally participated in, but we wanted to make a note of it for in the future that we want to take a look at that. And then I believe it was Cam asked that we note who was traveling to what, and so S is for me, J is for Gene, E is for everyone. There's a couple of A's on here for Angela, but we try to put all of our marketing and training travel on here and note who's going to be going there. And that both is local marketing and regional and national marketing. We kind of use this as a comprehensive calendar of big things that we're going to be at. Any questions on the calendar? This is the first year that we've actually produced the full calendar.
So Sean, for example, February 7th was Best County Day at the Capitol. Does that mean that you guys didn't go this year, but you're thinking you might want to go next year?
Well, we won't go next year, hopefully, because I'm hoping they won't have a special session, but everybody,
Hold on to that thought.
I'm hoping I don't have to go. So that week, I'd actually already been to the Capitol with Opportunity Austin.
Okay.
And so it fell in the same week that I was already there. I think it was on a Tuesday that I was there with Opportunity Austin and their Capitol Day. When it came around to the Thursday for Bastrop County, it just didn't work for me to go be in Austin for 2 half days, 2 full days. I was registered and planning on going, and it just was one of those weeks that you went, I've been once, no reason to go twice.
And that's fine, but the point that the way that you have it on here as a gray X is, should it present itself again, it's a meeting that you would try to be at.
Correct.
Okay.
And Sean,
And a good one's the February 7th to 8th, that Entertainment Experience and Evolution Conference in LA. We didn't find out until after the fact. That is a very good conference that we need to be looking at participating at next year and attending. It's really about experiential retail and experiential retail development and the change in that environment. It's been going on for a few years now, and it's been highly recommended by some folks that work in that space. And we didn't find out about it until I believe it was the week or 2 weeks after it had occurred.
And just to catch everyone up to speed, this was kind of a new ask that I kind of had, because we had these budgeted dollars for marketing and these meetings. So we got together and said, hey, if we could just have a reference of what we're doing with those resources. And then to take it a step further, I know that Sean and staff for fiscal 18 is going to start looking at how to capture success off the ones they attended, so that we can measure. It was kind of all tough to do all at once, but this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I will say, Sean, the only thing I would ask, just for reference, because as the board changes, if you could just have a key. I know we all know what Sean means and XP, but just put a key on there just for reference so we know it. I mean, it's simple, but to have that on there. Thank you.
Put a key up there for all the events.
Well, that would be great. Cam, what's funny is that's the one thing, I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure S is Sean and E is everyone.
Yeah, I
That's
knew
a
what
great X,
I knew what it meant,
you
but it
know,
just make sure that, you know, is this...
It'd be easier for everybody.
I
Absolutely.
understand. We will do that. It's easy enough to do. And Cam is right. We had to start tracking our expenses by the trip. We had to really start having a calendar of what it is. When the year is over, we can then go back and go, what did all these trips cost and what success did we have off of them? But you have to start somewhere, which is first allocating the trips to marketing travel and then know where you went.
And this is great. Fantastic. Thank you.
The only other thing, and I know it wouldn't necessarily impact the budget, but I would, if there are things that you guys can't cover, or even if you can cover and you want someone to go with you, this is a really good time to let us know this is something that we'd like you guys to be looking ahead on your calendar.
I just came back from the DC advocacy trip with Opportunity Austin, and the mayor in her official capacity as mayor, that would be a great trip for her to be on in DC and advocating for Bastrop. It's great to send me, but in her official capacity would be one. The other conference that I named, the Experience and Evolution Conference, the city manager and I have discussed, her and I both going to that because it's of great interest to Bastrop. And so that's one of the reasons producing a calendar makes a difference, so we can share that with everybody. And if I can't be there, somebody else may be able to, or one of the staff can cover it. So professional services is on page 18. Whoever recommended the page numbers last time, that was a very good recommendation. I think it was Drew. So page 18, what you'll see is professional services have come down because we pulled all those subscriptions out. We do not have any major professional services allocated. It's really our website hosting and the professional service they provide. We have a contract with a company out of Dallas, Fort Worth, site location partnership that does trade show recruiting for us. The trade shows they work really fit our target sectors. Out of the 6 or 7 they go to, probably 4 to 5 of those are things that we're interested in. There's always some food show that they're doing that doesn't make any sense for us, but beggars can't be choosy, and they kind of set it to be able to do that. Land appraisals and then other professional services. This is where we also have moved the audit. It used to be charged to us in our city contract for administrative services, but we've created a line item here because it really and truly is a professional service. Legal administrative, that is truly the administrative legal services that Denton Navarro provides for us. Coming to the board meeting, policies, procedures, bylaws, those kinds of things. The next line item is actually a new line item, legal project. So we can actually track the legal expense related to specific projects. That is a number that we're kind of getting out of Ouija board and going, we think it's going to be $12,000, whereas the other number, we have a pretty firm grasp of what it's going to cost at this point. We would actually like that number to go over budget because we're doing so many projects that we need additional dollars in legal for projects. And when we come back and ask for that, it provides us the justification of we did X, Y, and Z projects, now we want to do A, B, and C, and we ran through $12,000 in getting all those agreements drawn up. So it's a good problem to have. General engineering at $15,000, and then contractual services at $6,000. That is the Kershaw parking lot downtown. The EDC, city and county are a 3-way leasee on that, and our share is $6,000. There will be 1 year left on the lease next year. This last time through, the city did a 2-year lease, so we don't have any paperwork next year, which we're very excited about. Next up is city projects and services. This is probably where we're asking for the biggest change. City maintenance services, the city of Bastrop, about 18 months ago, 19 months ago, we went to an allocated methodology. They went out and literally kept track of how many hours they were weed eating, how many hours they were mowing, how many hours they were picking up trash, how long the truck sat on the side of Highway 71, and they allocated every expense to us and billed us. We had an estimate that we thought it was going to be about $139,000 in that first year, and it works out that it averages out to be about $100,000. And so after 18 months, it's really a lot of paperwork on the city side of it to keep track of it. It's a lot of paperwork on our side to pay the bill. The other thing that comes into the city maintenances and services is we're pulling the right-of-way out in the industrial park and taking credit for that. But it's always been intended, going back into EDC lore, that at some point the Highway 71 and these monument sign maintenance, that the city would actually take over the maintenance obligations of those. And we've had a lot of discussions with the finance director and with public works director, and nobody disputes that that was always the intent 10 years ago when this all started. And so what we've proposed to them is the $83,250 funding for FY18 and reducing that by 20% every year until FY23, in which they absorb the cost of maintenance in the Highway 71 right-of-ways and then the monument signs. And they are agreeable. If the board's agreeable, we're going to enter into a contract with them, an agreement that sets those numbers out, and everybody knows what they're getting paid, and they can go spend them how they want to on maintenance of the right-of-ways and the monument signs and how they best see fit. And in 5 years, it will not be our responsibility anymore. The Main Street program support, we've traditionally supported the Main Street program at $40,000. Normally that's been about 1/3 of the Main Street budget. Currently, I think hotel occupancy tax is going to fund about $115,000 next year. We're asking for a $10,000 increase. It hasn't been increased in as long as Angela and I can remember or have looked back. Yeah, it's been a while. And that will help us maintain that 2/3, 1/3 ratio. At $40,000, it was 40 and 85,000, I think. And the hotel occupancy tax side has gone up, but ours has not. Sarah O'Brien is doing an excellent job and working really well with us, and she relieves us of a lot of things that the big grant in her administration of that, it is simple and easy on our side and compared to the Mega and Facade grant program and how complicated it was on our side. So we are proposing that. City administrative services, the same thing occurred there with maintenance services. It went to a cost allocated methodology a couple years ago, and so we get a bill every month that it says IT spent X number of hours and finance did this and HR did that. And I did what I do. I went and put these all in a big spreadsheet for 18 months when you know what, these hours don't vary a whole lot. We were reimbursing, and through the end of this year, we were reimbursing for planning and development services time, and we were reimbursing for city manager time. We all work as a team, and so those have really been pulled out, and that we're not going to move forward with reimbursing those time, the time spent by those departments. We were really paying for some time in the planning department that Joe Q. Public would have gotten for free. And so this is going to make it right. And so when we looked at all the averages between HR and finance and IT, it works out to be about $18,000 a year. And so we're going to be bringing back a contract to go to the city for $18,000 in fixed cost for all of those services. And then there's $7,050 in what are called shared services. Our communications are direct billed to the city and they're charged to us. There's some other charges that haven't quite gotten there yet. We think that we can get those identified and get them to the correct cost codes next year, but for the time being, we're setting aside $7,000 for those shared services for someplace for them to charge them to until we figure out exactly what they're related and where they should actually go. And that should actually go away in the future budget year in FY19 once we identify exactly what they are and where they should be coded. Any questions on that?
Yeah, just a quick comment. So Sean, once we get through the city maintenance services, we will be done with all we did this, this is part of this, that's tied to this. This is all will be clean, and it'll just be business. Every day you pay for what you do, and that's it.
Correct.
Okay.
So really the way, when we're doing community development and we're doing a community development project, the city, when we're done building it, they should be prepared and have the position to be able to accept the responsibility of maintaining it long term. And it shouldn't be the responsibility of the EDC, because it dilutes our ability to actually go do what we're supposed to be doing, which is creating jobs and doing new community development projects. And so if they come and say, hey, we don't have the ability to absorb this, then we shouldn't be doing that community development project. And so it's going to free up some cash for us to go do what we do well, and it's going to ease them into doing what they do well, which is maintenance and operations of facilities. So projects, programs, and grants. One of the things that gets pulled out of professional services, and I think we're going to need to put some more money in it, and it reflects it, is the first retail recruiting. We traditionally have spent about $15,000 a year in data and retail recruiting services. We know that we are at a very critical juncture in our tourism and tourism marketing that is forthcoming. And we think we need to beef up our retail recruiting to make sure that as the DMO and Main Street identifies recruiting opportunities that we need to fill, that our recruiter has the dollars available and the resources available to go target them. We need to expand our retail target list from beyond those things on the highway to things that are attractions for tourists. And we don't quite know what that looks like, but I anticipate that our data portion of our contract will stay about the same, but our recruiting contract that's traditionally been $5,000 or so, probably doubling to that $10,000 number. And then that leaves about another $5,000 there for us to go do ICSC and participate in that, Retail Live. California, if it's not just a straight up marketing trip, it frees up some dollars for us to be a little bit more aggressive in our retail recruiting, because I think on the tourism and attraction side of this, we're going to need to beef that up a little bit moving forward as the DMO launches. Disaster relief grants, that's a small grant program that we have dollars allocated, but we have not written the guidelines for it yet, and knock on fake wood, we haven't had a disaster and needed it. But it's intended to be a quick response grant program. The KOA is always a good example when they flood and they need a dumpster, that we're able to quickly get them the funding that they need to get a dumpster out there, or reimburse them for that dumpster to get them reopened. At some point, we will get around to writing the guidelines and what that application looks like. But that was something that the Resource Committee of the Chamber of Commerce asked last year, and it's funding that I think that we continue forward. We did have some discussion internally about taking the $10,000 from this year and making it $20,000 this year. We just don't see the need for that kind of funding. We don't see a natural disaster inside the city limits of the city of Bastrop that much funding, quick response to a business funding needing to be available. And if we run out, we'll address it as quickly as we can through the board and other mechanisms. We're proposing $50,000 again for the big grant program. That program will probably be coming back to the board for some modifications for next year. The Economic Vitality Committee, as well as the Main Street Design Committee, are looking at those guidelines and tweaking that and going, what are our needs downtown? Entrepreneurial or education and workforce development, one of the things that the previous board discussed was a labor market study. So two things are going on here. Our high school program has been highly successful. Gene is working with the school district to move that program into the junior high, which is going to take some new dollars to make sure that as we're producing graduates 6 years, 7 years from now, that they're choosing skills and employment opportunities that make sense for Bastrop. But the other is the labor market analysis. There is a software package out there specifically related to labor market, and instead of going and hiring a consultant to run a labor market analysis, we actually think it's going to be about $10,000 on Chimera and the software that it provides, that it'll provide us the data and the infographics and all of those resources. What we see happening as we got into this is if we did a labor market study at $30,000, $50,000, our housing situation 2 years from now and those folks moving to Bastrop is going to change, we're going to have to spend another $30,000, $50,000. We think we're getting a little bit out in front with the labor market study, a full-blown one at that price. We think we stopgap for 2 years with a better data source that's suited to what we need, and buying commercial data that we're able to use. Angela and Jean have sat through the webinars and are in the process of making a recommendation, but that's where that $30,000, why it goes from $10,000 to $30,000. Entrepreneurial and small business development. This is a program, again, as we get into the DMO and tourism and attractions, we really need to beef up our entrepreneurial and small business programs. It's the last program we launched. Angela's going to head that up for us this fall as we roll that thing out completely. These small business seminars that we've been putting on, both the Launch 2017 as well as the customer service training we did with the chamber or with the Main Street program, that's all what these dollars are for, is to co-op and to strengthen those programs. Business retention and expansion stays the same. 380 agreements, we're currently estimating at $360,000 next year. That's the Buc-ee's and Burleson Crossing rebates. Water rights funding is $60,000 a year. Land grants and rebates, if you will turn to page number, page 27 is the sales tax rebate schedule. The red being the projections for future years. They actually run through the terms and it shows when we're estimating they pay off and the allocation for them. But page 28, and this thing is much bigger than this, but for the purposes back on the 5th of April, it actually shows all of our performance agreements that are outstanding and when we anticipate those paying. And so that is actually how we come up with those rebates. The interesting thing about the rebates is we've actually sold that land and have cash in the bank and a liability on our balance sheet. And so the rebates actually do not affect our cash position. And so we are also proposing adding a cost code, if I can find my sheet here, for cash incentives, which would actually affect our cash available balance. We don't have any currently outstanding, but as we look at job incentives related to employers in and outside of the business park, I think we need to be accounting for the rebates and the land sales and those rebates separately from the cash incentives. And so that is what that 56XX cash incentive line item with no money in it. Any questions on the incentive schedule? And as we're always projecting, as we're working on projects, we're adding them in here, subtracting them off, looking how it's going to affect our cash position in the future. So the next one is infrastructure projects, which is page 29. With the approval tonight of the downtown trail expansion, you'll see that there's $250,000 for the trail expansion. At some point, we'll rebrief this board on the Business Industrial Park Technology MLK project that was, the engineering was completed, the planning was completed a few months ago to have a larger discussion. At the moment, we're not putting any money into 921 Main Street. We've opened the RFQs. We're getting questions from the committee to submit back to the respondents. And we hope to be able to come in August or September with a recommendation to the board on how to move forward with that. And we'll deal with that as we narrow down who that's going to be. You will be seeing some notes here added to these sections. Debt service. With the defeasance, we jumped up to about a 30% of budget this year of revenues for debt service. That drops down to 13%, where we were running in the low to mid 20s prior to that. There's actually on page 33, you actually see the debt service going back to FY 2012, 2013, and then its percent of sales tax. And so with the FY17, it jumps up to do that defeasance, but then it comes down. About 20% of revenue is something less than that is a healthy debt service level. And so we have some debt capacity available should in a later date we want to do some projects that involve some debt. Any questions on debt service? It's pretty straightforward. We owe the bank money. The last one is miscellaneous and contingency. This is where the city of Bastrop likes to see a balanced budget. We ran a deficit budget last year, except for there was, with the defeasance, we ended up with $25,000 that ended up in contingency. This is where all of that, whatever the unallocated dollar amount is, this is where it will end up to balance the budget. But that will literally be the last thing we enter in until we know what it is. And those funds, we have internal financial control policies in place. If it's less than $1,000, the chair and I can move that to another cost code. If it's more than $1,000, it takes board approval. And I think there's even a limit before we have to go and get council approval to move money out of contingency. So I'd have to go back and reread that policy, but that is where the unallocated funds go. At the end of the year, they roll into our fund balance. And so we think we're going to have some infrastructure projects and some projects this year that are very attractive to the board and to the city council and the community to use some of that fund balance on things that everybody's going to agree that, hey, this is a good use of funds. And so I think the budget is good. I think it puts us in a good position. But I am willing to take any comments, any changes y'all want to see. I do think that whether we need a budget workshop on July 31st or not, I think we need to have a special board meeting so that we can do training and really get into Economic Development 101 and how we operate and answer questions for all the new board members and current board members. So we do need to be in a position to adopt our budget at the August board meeting. And so, because it needs to go to council in September for 2 readings and be included in the city's budget. And so if there are any questions, comments, that's kind of where we're at. Yes. So I think I've visited with everybody. Everybody's good for the 31st date for a special workshop. Okay. It'll be at 5 o'clock here at City Hall. And we appreciate that, by the way.
Thank you, Sean. Now going to 4.1. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberation about the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Project 1989 and/or Project Minerals. 2, Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Project 1989, Project Be Well, and/or Project Minerals. Okay, just call EDC back from executive session. Now we'll move on to item 4.3, consideration, discussion, and possible action on resolution R-2017-10, approving the terms of an economic development performance agreement with Project Minerals.
Make a motion to approve Resolution R-2017-10.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Ooh. On in. That's
You're supposed to count it.
I know, that's my fault. My apologies, Ron.
No problem.
Ron has plausible
Okay, moving on to agenda item 4.4. consideration and discussion and possible action on Resolution R-2017-11, approving the terms of a sales purchase contract for the sale of a tract of land located in the Bastrop Business and Industrial Park to Project Minerals. Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve Resolution R-2017-11.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
For the benefit of the press, since she needs to probably understand this, we'll give you a copy of this, by the way. So Project Minerals is a company called Granite and Stone LLC. They are an importer, wholesaler, and fabricator of granite and stone materials. They'll be receiving granite and stone blocks from around the world to be fabricated into slabs. And the company intends to hire up to 150 employees by year 5. Granite and Stone is purchasing approximately 5.5 acres in the northwest portion of the Bastrop Business and Industrial Park to construct a 50,000 square foot facility, and the land sale price is $215,622. The new facility will be home to their fabrication, stone yard, administrative offices, and retail showroom. The company intends to invest up to $9 million in real, personal, and working capital in the facility. Upon successful completion of the facility, Granite and Stone will receive a rebate of $96,000 after hiring 50 employees and their first anniversary. Upon successful completion, they'll receive $96,000. After hiring the first 50 employees and their first anniversary, they will receive a second rebate of an additional $96,000. The EDC is providing a job creation incentive in the maximum amount of $112,500 over 5 years. The EDC has agreed to rebate 0.25% of the EDC sales tax collected from the company's retail sales above the initial $5 million. The amount has been estimated that the sales tax rebate has been estimated at $86,625 over the life of the agreement. The total economic incentive package to the company is $391,125 based on the terms of the agreement. By their 5th year in Bastrop, Granite and Stone will have 150 employees with a 5-year average wage of $19.47 per hour, which includes burden and benefits. A portion of the company's sales will generate local sales and use tax. By year 5, the company expects to generate $20 million in local taxable sales. The company expects to add $9 million to the tax rolls. The 10-year net benefits are estimated at $3.3 million for the city of Bastrop and $5.5 million for all taxing entities. And as you see on the nice PowerPoint slide, those details are bullet pointed out. And we also have pictures of their existing facility in Massachusetts, in the exterior of the building and the manufacturing floor on the right, interior storage room, exterior storage area on the right, and then the exterior storage and retaining wall of the facility. So we are excited that Granite and Stone LLC has selected Bastrop, and we look forward in working with them through the process of getting them here and getting employees hired and producing a product.
I just have a comment. I just want to thank Sean and staff for a job well done. I know that some of us on the EDC, especially those who have been here a little longer, have challenged you guys to bring results, and this is a really good testament to the collaborative effort and the energy to bring real jobs, real companies to Bastrop. So thank each and every one of you. I appreciate it. We don't need a motion, right?
Nope,
To adjourn?
you just-
We're adjourned.